So we start with your thigh circumference as your foundation. And it's very important to note, when you're doing these patterns now, there's no seam allowance included. So for you guys who are used to, working with patterns that contain seam allowance, we're starting at ground zero. There's no stuff added, there's no allowance for hem, or, literally we're starting with the bare essentials. As we go on, we add stuff, or very importantly, as we go on, eventually we'll subtract negative ease. Because remember, your stretchy fabrics are not going to be the same size as your measurements, because then it's going to be a baggy undie, right? It's not going to look nice. It's not going to grip your body. So the parameters of what we're dealing with now has not been tweaked for accommodating the negative ease. In other words, you're not deducting the stretch factor yet. So let's just get the shape, and then once you've got that, then I'll explain what you would typically do. If I go too fast, just stop me and I'll explain. Okay, so let's just say you're going to have like a little line like this, and that little pattern piece, right? If you think of that pattern, it looks something like this, right? Because you're dealing with lace that is like all the same, like width everywhere. So this is the back, right? This is the center front. This is your rise front, rise back. And this little part here and here, that will become the inseam. So if you sew these two pieces together, eventually that's like the part where the gusset is going to go, right? So just so that you understand, this is your thigh, this is half your waist. Okay, so we start now with something that looks like a little long rectangle, and this represents your full thigh circumference. And the reason I'm writing full thigh as opposed to just thigh is when we deal with the waist circumference there, we're going to calculate based on the half of the waist circumference. So people oftentimes kind of confuse the two. So I started making a distinction when I teach to say full thigh circumference, half waist circumference. Okay, cool. Are we cool so far? So if you go look at the actual length here, this can be 3 centimeters, 4 centimeters. If you had a really large person, you might want to have, 5. So it really depends on how comfortable, like, the lace in that particular part of your body would be, right? If you go too wide, it starts being scratchy. Too thin, it's not going to give you coverage. Okay, so that's the basis of my undie. Then we're going to want to quickly do a simple calculation, and that calculation is going to be your full your full thigh circumference, and you're going to deduct from that half of your abdomen, not your waist, unless you're making an undie that comes all the way up to your belly button, which you can, but not for the Lacy boy shorts. That's like that particular lace, right? So you've got to now go and work with that abdomen circumference that you took. So you're going to take whatever your abdomen circumference is, divided by 2. So the formula is we're going to take half your abdomen, okay, minus your full thigh. Okay, so we first work that out. Okay.
So half abdomen minus.
Sorry, the other way around. Full thigh minus half abdomen. What am I doing? Sorry, people. I'll just write it here. Full thigh minus, okay, minus half abdomen. Thank you. Otherwise, I would have been.
Let's say it again. It's
Your full thigh circumference this minus half your abdomen measurement. Okay.
And this is telling us what? What is this?
We're going to calculate something out now. So this is kind of, we're doing this as part of another calculation, which is going to give us a guideline for the following. The guidelines, people, are as follows. So basically, this is a permanent marker, bad idea. The guidelines are for the difference between the back rise curve, right? And if you look at this undie pattern, imagine that's now what I've drawn there, right? So yours might now be 60, right? So that line represents that full thigh circumference. What we're trying to work out now is a guideline for drawing on that line that represents the full thigh. We want to give guidelines for where center front and center back is going to be starting and then curving. Okay, so what you're going to do is, you're going to take, let's take an example. I'm going to quickly grab Doris and do one based on Doris. So it's like a real example. Okay, I'm going to quickly just grab some measurements. Okay, so let's say Doris's full abdomen, I'm going to go with 90. And I'm going to go with 5 for Doris. Let's say let's say 60. Okay, so let's say Doris's full abdomen, I'm going to go with 90. And I'm going to go with thigh for Doris. Let's say 62. Okay, 62. Okay, so now I have the info I need. I've got, what did I say for the abdomen is 90, hey? Okay, the abdomen, okay, 90, and the thigh was 62.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to go, half of that is 45, so you're going to go 62 minus 45 is going to be 27. No, 17.
17.
Yeah, 17, right? And then what you're going to do is you're going to take the 17, we'll call that amount, whatever this is, we'll call it X. Okay, just for the sake of having a reference. So you're going to take X divided by 3. Okay, so X divided by 3, and we'll call that Y. And then you're going to take 1 times Y and measure on the thigh line to give us the guideline for the front of our rise. So let's just work it out. Like, it's going to make a lot more sense once you know what things are. So you're going to go 17 is X, right? 17 divided by 3 is 16 divided by, let me just work it out with an actual calculator. This is kind of like a weird number. No, it's a recurring number, I'm sure. 17 divided by 3 equals 5.66. Okay, so 5.66. So 5.66 is Y. Okay. So basically, Y times 1 is 5.66. So this here, for that guideline to happen, is 5.66. All right, for the front. So on that side line, I'm going to make a line 5.66 from the edge in here, and I'm going to go perpendicular. And then for the back, it's going to be double this. So the back is going to be Y times 2. So 5.66 times 2, right? 5.66 times 2 is going to give me 11.32. So here, that distance from the edge is 11.32. Okay. And then people, what we can do now, I mean, if you think about it, this is all, we really are splitting hairs at the pattern stage, but if you think about it, the fabric it's stretchy, it's got a life of its own, right? So in the end, if you're out by a tiny bit, it's going to make a difference maybe between like how cool it looks or how comfortable it is, but it's not going to be completely malfunctioning. This is going to give you, this is what I was talking about, Christina, these are the like simple sort of expecting ratios that we can say, okay, if I wanted to draft like really quickly, once I had somebody's abdomen or waist circumference and their thigh circumference, I can actually with quite a good amount of accuracy go and quickly MacGyver like this whole setup, right? And then, depending on the rise measurement, if it was a full one that went all the way up to the high waist, to the true waist, right? Then do you guys agree? Let me just grab another color, like purple. Okay, if this went all the way up to your actual waist, right? At extra height, this is now your waistline, where your actual belly button stuff is. Then, if you think about it, this would be representing in some way your back rise. And this would in some way represent your front rise. So the same stuff that we see on our leggings, right? That's why I'm saying if you draft your own legging pattern once, you can go and get a lot of use out of that pattern because you can make all kinds of fancy variations. You know, you could probably go and make like, you know, even a bikini from that. Okay, are we all still okay? Cool. All right, so basically now the rise calculation. So people, we have really cool gadgets. We can use a flexi curve. Sorry, Christine, I'm just going to grab this behind you. And I'm just going to also grab one of the French curves. Here we go. Okay, sorry. So the French curves are really handy because if you want it to be like super precise, you can put this on your body and try to, you know, get an exact shape of your body. So the flexi curves grip your body to a certain degree there's all kinds of ways that people go and try and find the exact same curve as your body. You know, like that one that I do that represents like the Barbie of whose leg we removed, right? So you can use a flexi curve, but now we still have to figure out on the rise, okay, where is the division between the front rise and the back rise, because it's not halfway. Do you agree? Because your bum is bigger than your stomach in most cases. So there's a ratio, there's a formula that we can use to figure out where's the inseam. Oopsie. Like it's going to be here somewhere, right? So I'm going to just now explain something that you can do at home that's kind of like a little bit freaky and fun, where you can work out exactly where your body's difference is. How are you going to do the calculation? I'm going to use a simple one. Let's say Doris was 70, if it was a full one, right? Let's say Doris was a total of 70. So you'd go 70 divided by 2, okay? And that would give you 35. And the bare minimum, this is like the absolute minimum that they will be different, right? And this typically applies to the smaller side of the spectrum of people. The bigger you get, the bigger the difference will become, right? But let's say this is a size 6 person or size 8. Who mentioned their daughter that has nice figures? What if you like said? Yeah, it's got a nice figure. Yeah, so like, you know, for them you might use this method. So now you're going to take, for your front rise, to know how much out of that 70 your front rise gets, you're going to say the rise, which is 70 divided by 2. And then what you're going to do is you're going to give your front rise a deduction. You're going to take 1 inch off the front. Okay, so Christina will like this because it's in inches. So we say front rise equals the total rise, okay, minus 1 inch. Okay. Total rise, sorry, divided by 2, right, minus 1 inch. So in our case, it would be 35 minus 2.5, which is going to give you 32.5. So your front rise for a 70 centimeters total rise would be 32.5. And then what we do for the back rise, okay, is going to be the total rise, okay, divided by 2 plus 1 inch. So now we take 35 and we plus 1 inch is 2.54 to be exact. But you know, you'll basically wind up with a minimum difference of 5 centimeters. So if you think about it, if you've worked out the front one, you can actually just go and slap on 5 centimeters and then you already know how much the back will be, right? Because there's always a 2 inch difference. Now, the bigger you get, that difference is going to go from 5 centimeters up to about 8. And that's very common. I promise you, between 5 and 8, if it's a very large, very tall person, it might be a little bit more. I promise you, most of the time it's about 8. Okay. So, and I think for undies, we're probably going to be closer to like 5. Alright. So, and you can actually go and see this for yourself. You can take garments, clothing of your own, like pants and leggings, and you can stick legging legs inside the other, so that you then see, you know, if you look at your leggings like this, right, there's your leggings, now you put the one leg inside the other, and it's going to basically look like this. There's the inseam, so you put the other leg in there. And then you can see exactly where this point is. Right. You guys have questions yet? Does it make sense? Okay, so back rise and front rise, I'm just going to give them their own little frames. Okay, so that you don't confuse them. Okay, plus 1 inch, minus 1 inch.
I have one question.
Yes, dear.
I still don't think I understand. What are the
This.
5 points? Yeah, do we know?
Okay, so remember it's your full thigh circumference, so it's your thigh circumference minus this.
Yeah.
And whatever difference we get is x,
Yeah.
right? We take x divided by 3, and then we get one of those thirds to the front, and 2 of those thirds to the back. And it's literally the difference between the half of the abdominal waist and the thigh. We're taking care of these bits.
So it's just calculating how much thigh coverage is in the front or coming
Yeah.
to the back.
Yeah, it's
So
literally,
it's how much
exactly,
goes-
yeah. So if you have to like, I actually found a really cool explanation where somebody used like Lego blocks, and they showed you, you know, like like the 3D, like the best way to really think of it is if you had to have a body like a Doris and you remove one leg.
Yeah.
And you'll see how deep in from the back. You drew a line here and you measure to that point how much of it is versus this, you know?
Yeah.
So it's about that depth. So in pattern making, that's typically referred to as the crotch extension. So that's, yeah. Okay, but for now, as long as you just capiche full thigh minus half abdominal waist, take that amount which we'll call X divided by 3, and then we'll give one of those 3's to the front and 2 of those 3's to the back. We make our guidelines, right? Once we've got our guidelines, then from here to center back, we'll take a curve, French curve, which will not be guessing. We'll go and find where exactly on the curve your rise calculation happens. And then, remember, once you've got that total, whatever your undie was below your true waist, you can then go and take that off. So you can literally take this off if you want it to be really accurate. Okay, does it make sense? Yeah? So, I mean, it's quite practical, yeah.
That's like the hand in it.
Yeah, exactly like what we were doing, because this would represent your abdomen. Okay, cool. And I promise you, once you go through this one time, to get a very comfortable, very well-fitting undie, and you can make for pretty much anybody. So yeah, cool. Okie dokie. So I'm going to stop the recording now. I'm going to start babbling and then we'll look a little bit silly. Okay.